All right. I think we are live. Let's see. Think we're live. I think we're live. Welcome to another live broadcast right here on Samba Journey. So glad that you guys can join us today. Today being June the 22nd, 2026. Time waits for no man. It sure doesn't, does it? We are moving strong here, and before you know it, we'll be in July. And it's another wonderful day, and I'm so glad that you guys can join us today. We got a full broadcast for you today, and we're really gonna try to get right into it. We're gonna talk about just an update, some of the stuff you guys already know, but what I really try to do is bring a different perspective, and I'm looking for other people who have these different perspectives on some of these things that are out there that people are talking about. We're going to do a follow up on the Karmelo Anthony situation. As you know, that they did drop the videos that people were demanding for. Now people are pissed off that they dropped them on Juneteenth. Anyway, so you got that. So we're going to talk about that at the beginning. A little bit later, our feature, we're going to talk about fatherhood, but we're going to look at fatherhood from the vantage point of nature. Now, I'm taking that approach because, again, just like I did with, when we were looking at the Bible, right? With the whole series we did with that, my thing is, let's just strip away everything. There's a lot of people out here that are talking and saying a father is this, a father is that, a father should be doing this, a father should be doing this, so forth and so on. But I said, you know what? Let me take the same approach I took with everything else is, okay, what does nature have to say on it? What's the role of the father? What's the role of the man? And what exactly are we supposed to be doing? And some of this is going to be quite interesting, should be quite interesting to you because there's some things I didn't completely know. So it should be, hopefully it'll be very interesting, and it will help us to better understand fatherhood, more specifically black men who are fathers and black men in general. So we're going to talk about that as well. So welcome. So we're going to go ahead and let's get our music on, and we're going to give people about a minute or so to get in. And then we're going to get started, okay? right, all right. Welcome again to another live broadcast here in our sunny studio here in the great state of Arizona, where right now it's 105 degrees. Yes, you heard me correct. 105 degrees. That's kind of normal right now these days out here. So, yeah, this is a state of the sun. And so if you are someone that don't like the sun, they don't come. No, but for real, it is a beautiful state. It really is. Arizona, it's a beautiful state, lots to offer. We're in the southern part, so it's always going to be hot here. But the northern part, if you just want a whole nother experience of the state, that's where you go. You go up to the northern part because it's a lot cooler. You have a lot of trees, a lot of, pine trees and things like that. People go camping out there and all that, and it's really, really nice. So don't get fooled and think that Arizona is just Phoenix. It has a lot to offer. Beautiful, beautiful place. I found out, I think it was a few, about maybe 6 months or so ago. They was like, when it comes to copper, Arizona is like the capital of the nation when it comes to copper. I was like, oh my goodness, we just happen to be here anyway. So I thought that was really neat, along with some other things too. We still got our water issues and all of that, but here we are. But anyway, I hope the weather is nice where you are and enjoyable. But most importantly, I hope you are getting outside, doing what again? Getting your sunlight, doing your breathing exercises, going for a walk, that kind of thing. Make sure you're doing all those things, y'all, because that helps your mind. It helps reset your body. That's not just some, I'm just going to, no, it's a lot more to it. It's a lot more to it than that. I'm not even this and that, really. I mean, it's a lot more to it. It's very important for your body and your mind. And that's what we're about here. Not just talking about the news and all of that, but making sure that our minds are in a healthy state to be able to process what we're hearing, what we're seeing, and having the wisdom to know that some things, you know what, I'm not going to waste the time with. Others, yeah, I may invest in it, but I'm going to invest in it wisely. And that's what we're about here. So anyway, so hope you guys are having a wonderful day here. And as always, good to see everybody in the chat. Big shout out to all of you guys, as usual. Really appreciate you guys very, very much. Yesterday, some of you may have seen the post on the community page, but yesterday was a long one. That was a long day for me. Whew, that was a long day. Of course, I was working, but it was a long, long day. And when I was finished, and I was really looking forward to doing the video and all of that, and of course, my wonderful family, especially our two beautiful children, they were like excited, and they just, I'm still amazed. I mean, that they're like, he's getting ready. Okay, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, and we're gonna do this, and I'm like, wow, you guys are doing that for me. Like, I literally don't even be like, I can't wait till Father's Day because I'm gonna get something. I never think that, you know what I mean? But they still remind me of how they were back during Christmas, when they were when they were little children and all of that. And it's just, it's just so dear. That in of itself is the treat for me, but I just couldn't, I had to break their hearts. I said, I'm sorry. I said, I just don't have enough. I don't have anything in me, because even with all of that, I wanted to, talk about this whole fatherhood thing because it's, yesterday was Father's Day, and, that's a very important day, just like Mother's Day. And let me just say this too, because every year we get the same comments, from some people, not all, but some people. Isn't Father's Day a pagan day? And I reversed and I just asked them, I said, well, tell me one thing that's bad about honoring and celebrating good fathers. Tell me one bad thing about that. Well, tell me one bad thing about honoring or celebrating good mothers. Can you tell me that? But when I read in the history, though, when I go all the way back during the Roman and the Greeks and all of that, mother was referring to the gods, the goddesses and all of this, and the fathers were referring to the gods and all of that. Okay, then use the same standard, and all the cash you have in your account, make sure you bring it all to me, baby. because all of that cash, when it says one nation under God, guess what? They ain't talking about the God of your Bible. Maybe they are. They're not talking about that, but they are talking about another God that you claim you don't worship. So if you're not into paganism, them pagan bucks, I got a cash app for you. Okay. I got a pagan cash app for you. I'm just playing. You can just send it on and it's instant. It's instant. And you can just send it on and I can free you. I can just deliver you from that paganism. Release them from the spirit of paganism right now. Do it. Do it today. I'm serious, y'all. If you one of those, then it's so be it, but here, any opportunity we have to celebrate and honor, fathers, mothers, grandparents, we're going to take full advantage of that. And no, we're not acknowledging there's no God or goddess attached to that. Okay. So that's what we're going to do. So so today we're going to talk about that. Before we get into that, we are going to talk about as I said earlier, we're going to, there's a video I want to show you from like I told you, he's an attorney, one of the attorneys, because that's who I go to, people who are very familiar with these subjects, particularly the law, right? And so this guy did I tell you, I keep saying to myself, I'm like, man, I sure wish that would be wonderful to have an editing team, at least someone I can just, hey, put this together for me and all that, because I already know what to edit. I even know how to edit. I just don't have the time. You know what I mean? So anyway, he put together this video that kind of gets to it. The Karmelo Anthony situation, as you know, we'll discuss that earlier on. And then the feature is we're going to look at fatherhood, but we're going to look at fatherhood from the perspective of nature, manhood. What is manhood? And nature and all of that, how does nature define what fatherhood is? And we're going to look at it. We're not going to be looking at any ancient books or different belief systems and all that. What has nature been practicing as long as we can remember? And we're going to take that and we're going to superimpose that on fatherhood as it's demonstrated today, particularly in what we call the Black community. And of course, it's going to come up with some areas that we're strong in and areas that we need improvement on. Okay. And so we're going to see that. And of course, we're going to work on how we can improve that and how we can fix those gaps. Okay. So that's what we're going to talk about in this broadcast. But first, this broadcast wouldn't happen unless it was for our key sponsor, which is Samba Tree, sambatree.com. That is the store. That is the online store that we established as a way to bring some real solutions. It's not just selling stuff just to be selling things. It's to bring about some tangible solutions to many of the things that we talk about. We are very invested in health and wellness of people, particularly our people. And it's one thing to talk about it, but it's another thing to take a step further and to provide education, point to you different things that you can use to help benefit you, to benefit your life, your mind, your body, and all of that. And so I have one of the most beautiful assistants that I could have ever asked for in the house. And she is going to share a little bit about Samba Tree and some of the things that's going on right now. So you're going to want to pay attention to that. And then we're going to roll it and then we're going to get into it. Okay. So you definitely don't want to miss this. So Nicole, you want to come on in? Oh, you're going to sit down. Okay. All right. Well, I know that. Okay. Good. Oh, okay.
I want you around because I'm going to have you bring up the website.
All right. I'm going to turn the air conditioner on.
You're going to turn the air on? Hey, 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 hey. Hey, everybody. Yeah, he was not lying. It's a scorcher. But last week was even worse. It was like 110, 112, 110, 111, like really hot. So my Jersey blood is a little, feeling it. But over on Samba Tree, yes, we do have some exciting things happening, and also moving into the summer, we'll have some really exciting things going on. But right now, two things. We have a closeout on this product. I'll bring that up in just a second, and the whole mouth medicine oral care guide. If you have not gotten yours, the price will be going up very, very soon. And one of the things, it's trending right now. It's funny. It's funny how things just come right around. But the miswak. I know you've seen it. You may have tried it or used it. But the people who bought the pre-order of the book got miswak sticks. And before there was toothbrush, before there was toothpaste, there was this. And in Swahili, it's miswaki. And some people refer to it as the African toothbrush tree. And in the Caribbean and Cameroon, they use guava twigs, right? So the same guava bush that gives you the guava leaf tea that we offer, people in the Caribbean would take the leaves of the guava tree, soak them, make a little rinse, and use it for gum health, right? And then they would take the guava, this is not guava, but they would take the guava stick or twig and use it to brush their teeth, okay? And then in Nigeria, you had the Paco stick, right? So this is not new, okay? The first documented chewing stick was 7,000 years ago, but we know it's earlier. It's even earlier than that. How do you use it? I'll be doing a short on this, but just real quick for the people in the house. You're going to take a 1/2 inch of the stick. You're going to bite it off just like that. Take off that outer bark, okay? Like I said, I'll do a short so that you guys can see it up close, okay? Gonna take off the outer bark like that. From here, you can soak it in water, right, to soften the bristles, or you can just chew them and let your saliva begin to separate this top part into bristles, right? So that's what we'll do since we're right here on camera, okay? Okay, so we're just chewing, creating bristles. Now, let's wait for it to focus.
Put your hand, you know how to.
Oh, yeah. There we go. All right. But you see that, you can probably see a little bit. It's like bristles. Mm-hmm. Bristles. There you go. Right? Bristles. And from there, you can hit it with a little hydrogen peroxide if you want. You can dip it in a little mint powder if you want. You can drop a little clove essential oil on it if you want. Or you can just use it just like this in its natural state and begin brushing your teeth up and down. What's going to happen is you're going to have antibacterial properties that are contained in this stick that begin to infuse into your gums and bring health to your mouth and clean your teeth, right? So you're just doing like this. Okay. You are seeing my green tea stained teeth in all of their glory, but that's all right. We're family. Okay. And this is what you're doing. You do brushing. Up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And do you know that studies have actually been done in Saudi Arabia that show that the miswak is equal to or better performing than the toothbrush in terms of keeping a healthy mouth environment, right? So, you know, people call this primitive. But again, like I always say, nature is best. Nature is best. And that's it. There you go. If you want to learn more about Miswaki, and what our ancestors did before toothpaste, before toothbrush, okay, you can get our brand new digital guide called Whole Mouth Medicine. I don't think it's on the screen, but Whole Mouth Medicine. You will get toothpaste, DIY toothpaste recipes, mouthwash recipes, oil pulling recipes, tooth powder recipes. I just made a new tooth powder last night. Tooth powder recipes. And these are ancestral oral traditions from Africa, the Caribbean, and beyond. We even have indigenous to the Americas, North America, South America, Central America, herbs that they used for cleaning the teeth, gum health. Yeah, it's awesome. So it's $14.95, which is an absolute steal because the guide is like 150 pages. It's like 150 pages. Okay. But a lot of that is recipes and herb cards. So you get the herb, you find out what it's used for, what land it's native to, and also where you can find it, right? Online. Okay. So that's that whole mouth medicine, $14.95. It's going to be going back to $19.95 shortly. The very last thing is this. This is, let's see if we can get it. No, it's not focusing, but that's all right. We'll do it there. This is Rosewater, Heritage Store Rosewater. This product goes for $12.99 at Sprouts. There it goes. $12.99 at Sprouts. $12.99 on Amazon and Whole Foods. Samba Tree, $7.99. $7.99. We only have 25 or 26 of these left. That's all. All right. And this is not a normal in-stock item. This is a one and done, right? So get them while they are in stock. And this has two ingredients: rose essence and Mag water. So it's vortexed water. I'm into that kind of thing. But you vortex water to basically bring it back to its natural state. All right. Instead of just the dead water that's running through our pipes coming out of our sinks. When you vortex water, you bring it back structurally to its normal state. Because when you see water in nature running through rocks, running down the mountains, coming down the waterfall, it moves in a vortex type pattern. That's how water runs and how it moves and how it lives in nature, right? But when you take it through all of these hard bending pipes from your municipal water system, it basically it devalues those properties, right? And destructures the water. So when you vortex it, you help the water retain its original structure. And so that's the type of water that's in this Rosewater product. It's summertime. I pass by my bathroom. Boom, 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 boom. And I get that dew, I refresh my skin, and I am off to the next thing. So it's awesome. Get it before it's gone. 25 units left. That's it. That's all we have left. And I will give the seat back over to Dwayne. Love y'all. See you. SambaTree.com.
All right. See that? No. Let me get some of that rose essence here real quick. Hold on. Let me get some of that.
Some. Don't be scared of it. Go on. Get you a little glove.
Look, let me get that on my beard, man.
Yeah, we gonna have to trim that. We gotta get him a trim.
Right. Anyway, well, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And again, the website is sambatree.com. Thank you so much, you guys. Really appreciate that. Go check it out. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's get to this Karmelo Anthony story here. As you know, people have been demanding You must release the videos. You guys are hiding the videos from us. They're being hidden. You know, they're trying to hide the truth from us. That's what's happening right now. They're hiding the truth from us. And the whole time I kept telling people, I said, listen, they're going to release it. Even the Metcalf, he wanted it released because he knew that, you know, once it came out, it was going to, well, at least they thought, it was going to shut down a lot of the lies and rhetoric and misinformation that was being put out there. And so, yeah, so they dropped the video. And guess what? Not surprisingly, people are still complaining. Well, what are they complaining about now? Well, they're complaining now because the video or videos, they were actually dropped on Juneteenth. And so you got people out here now that are mad because how dare you? How dare you drop those videos on Juneteenth? And so you have people out here literally saying, you see how they're playing with us? See how they're doing that? You see how they play around with us like that? See, they're trying to send a message. They're trying to send a message. No, you're the mess. You're the mess, okay? And you're the sage of the mess. You're the sage of the mess. That's what you are, okay? And yeah, you're the one that's putting it all out here. That's false. But again, as I told you, people were already speculating and saying, oh, no, this ain't the real video. My friend, he got a real copy of the video. Oh, it's just never ending. It will never stop. And people are still, you know, making up stuff and all of that. Well, anyway, one of the people I told you, I said, these are actual lawyers. You know, you guys should check them out and what they have been saying regarding this case and all of that. Is Nate the lawyer. Nate the lawyer, he is a licensed lawyer. He's one that's actually licensed, and he talks about these things, and he's been closely following this particular case. And the one thing I like about this video is that he went back and actually went to the people who are out here spreading falsehoods, about this case. And he's been, you know, and so, yeah, so he's been tracking it, and he went back and he's comparing it to what we know now. And it's quite amazing to see and to watch. And, you know, like I told you guys, I mean, when I'm putting together these broadcasts, they're not just random stuff. Everything I put in it, it all ties in to the main topic at hand. Believe it or not, it all ties in. And this right here is going to tie into the fatherhood portion that we're going to do after this segment. And so, so just hold on with me. And, but let's take a look at the video. The video itself is about 26 minutes long. Of course, we're not going to play all of that, but I do want you to see it, see part of it, so that you can see for yourself, you know, just how crazy these people are. Anyway, let's go ahead and get to the video here. Let me go ahead and get this volume up here, and let's take a listen to Nate the lawyer. The title of the video, as you see on your screen, is Court Releases New Video Exposing Karmelo Anthony Advocates Lying About Everything. Let's take a listen.
Before we get to that video, I want you guys to hear how some of the influencers online were describing what they purported to say was on this video.
The hypocrisy is staggering. They did not release the video publicly because they know it would exonerate Karmelo Anthony. There was video played of the incident inside of the courtroom that showed Austin to be the aggressor, Austin confronting Karmelo, Austin pushing Karmelo, Austin then getting stuck by Karmelo. But it also showed Austin's brother, Hunter, being at the center of the fight. He also put hands on Karmelo, and so did some of their other friends. Witnesses said that at least 5, in fact, not just witnesses, but it's also on video, at least 5 of them jumped Karmelo. The witness never mentioned jumping Karmelo. Other witnesses for Austin never mentioned jumping Karmelo. They jumped him.
Now, for those of you who don't know, that's Willie D Live. He has 1.1 million subscribers on YouTube. Now, next is the amazing Lucas. He's going to describe what he believes is on that video.
And I also have questions. I don't know how the defense did not play that video. Because when you see that video, it was self-defense.
That video apparently wasn't played in court. Now you want to tell me why a piece of evidence that would prove your client's innocence, that would prove your client's self-defense, that you wouldn't play that in court? You have to explain to me. I ain't got the answers, okay? Riddle me that one, Batman. It's not making any sense. It's not making any sense. We've had multiple people say that clearly this seems to be self-defense based off of what they saw. Unless, like I said, unless you're throwing him under the bus.
I have to pause the amazing Lucas here for a second because there's another explanation. They could just be lying.
You're feeding him to the wolves. And that's what it seems to be the case.
So now we get to watch the video and see if the amazing Lucas and Willie D and all of these people who are telling us what's on the video is correct. But before we get to the video, I have one more video to play. See, when it was found out that the video was going to be released to the public since the trial was over, some people started changing their story about what was on that video. Yep. For instance, here's Karmelo Anthony's spokesperson who's doing an interview with someone else who was in the courtroom and actually saw the video. And they've changed their tune a little bit. Listen to what they're saying now.
What we saw inside the courtroom was a grainy, hard to see video. But there was a lot of people outside the courtroom who said that they went to ISD and watched the footage and said that it was clear, and they said that they saw more than what we were shown. Can you speak on that?
Well, so Nick, you know I wasn't in there, right?
Oh.
But I can tell you I did see the video at Frisco ISD. And the video that at Frisco ISD, it's not like you can sit there and look at the pimple on someone's face, but you can identify what's there, right, in front of you. And so what has been described to me, you know, is like, no, you could at least kind of know and count how many people right there. You know
well,
what
we
I
can count how many bodies, but we can't see like faces. You know what I mean? Like we could see like, okay, somebody sitting right there, somebody sitting right there, but we couldn't see like Karmelo in Austin's face, or you know what I mean? It just was like kids there.
Mm-hmm.
Some people were saying that they were able to see him getting jumped. I couldn't see that. So I was wondering if you guys saw something different.
No, it's not I didn't see that with that video. No. I didn't see him getting jumped. Or, you know what I mean? Like I saw movement over there. I saw that there was multiple people around him, but I didn't see he was getting, you know what I mean, like the altercation. No.
Now, it's pretty incredible because this is Karmelo Anthony's spokesperson, and he's saying the exact opposite of what all these advocates are outside saying, that the video's clear, he was getting jumped, how much detail they can see. He's saying, I saw it at the school district. No, this is someone, Neek at Night, who's saying, I saw it in the courtroom. That's not true. And now, again, they know this video is eventually going to come out. So they are making sure that their credibility is being saved. But now we get to judge all this. Who's telling the truth? Because, again, this is not Metcalf versus the Anthonys. These are everyone on the Anthony side are giving conflicting accounts of what's on that video. So let's watch it and see who's telling the truth. Now, before we get into the video, here's a quick message from this video sponsor, ZocDoc. Okay, raise your hand if you've been putting off doctor's appointments, dental cleanings, annual checkups, eye exams. All right, so now let's go over the video that was presented in the Karmelo Anthony murder trial. All right, so here's the video at the beginning. So this is a camera at the entrance. We see Metcalf, the person who unfortunately is going to lose their life, entering the park. So now we go to this wide shot of the field, and if you can see right here, that little dugout place, when it started raining, Karmelo Anthony and his team ran in there, but they were told by officials they had to leave out of there. So we're going to see them now leave out of that area. But as you can see, it's not raining hard. It may be a light drizzle, but it's not raining as hard as some people were making it seem. And you see these other tents right next to that dugout area too. They're highlighting Karmelo Anthony coming out of the dugout because officials told him and that team they couldn't be in there. So that's where you see everybody leaving out. Now, he passes one tent. He passes a second tent. And now we're going to split to another camera angle. Now, I had to pause the video right here because all the commotion happens under the tent and we're zoomed out pretty far. So I'm going to zoom in as close as we can so we can see what's happening in that tent. Because as of right now, Karmelo Anthony's in that tent and is being approached by the other boys asking him to leave. Here it is, zoomed in as close as possible. Now, Karmelo Anthony's already there and they're asking him to leave and they're having a conversation. Now, he's not really surrounded, but remember, there were other teams already in there when he came to sat down. Now, there's no commotion. It seems like everybody's just talking. You really can't distinguish who's who at this particular point in time. So all those people are saying it's clear that it's self-defense. I just don't see that here. You see some movement in the background. You really can't tell who's who, but we know for a fact Karmelo Anthony is back there sitting down and they're asking him to leave. Now, remember, witnesses said they asked him to leave about 15 times during this particular point in time. So I don't know what's going on. Other teams are now coming into view, looking to see what's happening. And again, there's not you don't see a struggle. You don't see any crazy movements. It just seems like they're all talking, trying to get this guy to leave. Again, if you're looking at this, it doesn't look like there's any struggle or anything that's happening under the tent. It looks like they're continuing to have some type of dialogue. There's a couple of people moving back there, but it doesn't seem like anybody's surrounded. Doesn't seem like there's any pushing or shoving going on. Now, at this moment, you can see a push. You can literally see a push, and you can see Karmelo Anthony, what looks like a push, but actually stabs the kid, and then he exits the tent. Now, they're going to highlight him here, and he's going to run away. So now, you've seen the video. These people were claiming that Karmelo Anthony was jumped, and they can see it clearly. It was obvious, right? Remember that?
Now, I remember the black guy who was talking about, oh, yeah, they pulled him and all this, and none of that came out in court. So I automatically dismissed it. It's like, hey, this person's lying. He's a liar. I don't know, like, people lie. I don't know why they would lie about this, but it is what it is.
I love the irony here because he's right. They were obviously lying. But let's hear it out.
Then we have other people who are verifying what they saw.
Hello, everybody. I'm an advocate for Karmelo Anthony.
So as soon as you hear I'm an advocate for Karmelo Anthony, you know this person's account is going to be a little suspect. But she could be telling the truth. So let's hear her full account because, again, you've just watched the video, and let's see if what she says aligns with the video.
My name is T, and when I went to see the video, they ask if you want to see it from either 2 minutes before the stabbing or 11 minutes before. So I chose 11 minutes. From the moment she pressed play, Karmelo Anthony was already sitting up underneath that canopy. And he was sitting there for at least 8 to 9.5 minutes. You see, well, I saw a boy in a black hoodie go over to him first, and then they left out of the tent, and then you see coming across the field was another 6 boys. When they got to the bleachers, one he went out of frame, and the other one sat at the bottom. But the remaining 4, they went directly to Karmelo Anthony. And like T said before, it was a brief conversation, and then all you see is commotion. And we know from the interviews that Hunter did, we know that Hunter was, in fact, up underneath that tent. The next thing you see, you can see Karmelo, in the midst of them assaulting him, you can see Karmelo trying to back out, but he gets pulled back forward. The next thing you see is Karmelo, he comes shooting out the back, but he's still not standing. And he had to like kind of crab crawl backwards, and he had to like jerk away from them because they still had a hold of his hoodie. He goes up a couple bleachers and he's looking around for which way to go. He runs diagonally down the bleachers and then he falls. At the time of him falling, that's when I noticed another 3 boys coming down the bleachers chasing after him. But once Karmelo got up, he took off. You didn't see him for the rest of the video.
Now this,
I gotta chime in here. I have to chime in here. I have to chime in here. You know, you a damn lie. I mean, that's just. I mean, that's just, you a liar. I mean, that's why, like I said, I am so glad he took that video and matched it up with what she was saying, or tried to match it up. It ain't nowhere near how she's describing. Now, he's going to make a point that is he's going to make a very good point about the type of lie that was being told here, because everything she was saying wasn't exactly false. But I want you to listen to what he said. Let me go ahead. I mean, it just, wow. Anyway, let's go.
This is a master class in lying, because what you do is you sprinkle your lies in with the truth. Mm-hmm. So it's harder to dissect, because as soon as you say she's lying about what she observed, other people will say, well, no, he did run diagonally down the bleachers, which just happens to be true. But the lies that she wove into it makes her account totally fraudulent. Now, compare what she just said to other Karmelo Anthony advocates who were in the courtroom and saw the video themselves.
What we saw inside the courtroom was a grainy, hard to see video, but there was a lot of people outside the courtroom.
It's not like you can sit there and look at the pimple on someone's face, but you can identify what's there, right, in front of you. And so what has been described to me, you know, is like, no, you could at least kind of know and count how many people right there. You know,
well, we can count how many bodies, but we can't see like faces. You know what I mean? Like we could see like, okay, somebody's sitting right there, somebody's sitting right there, but we couldn't see like Karmelo in Austin's face, or you know what I mean? It just was like kids there.
Mm-hmm.
Some people were saying that they were able to see him getting jumped. I couldn't see that. So I was wondering if you guys saw something different.
No, it's not, I didn't see that with that video. No.
Now, again, he's the spokesperson of the family here. And it's amazing how people just, this out of convenience, all of a sudden they tucking him under now. Now he ain't, they trying everything they can to try to put distance. This is the representative of the family. You can't get any more legit than that. The family chose this man to be the spokesperson of them. And he is saying himself, he looked at the video and he said, I couldn't make out any of that.
So, Karmelo Anthony supporters on both sides telling very different stories. And I'll say this, now you know who you can trust. Now you know whose story lines up with the evidence. And it also exposes how these rage baiters work. They take pieces of the truth and then splash it with these extra details that are obviously not there. And remember, Karmelo Anthony's camp was saying, we can't believe he was convicted because the video clearly shows it was self-defense. It clearly shows he was being jumped. It clearly shows that he was being pulled back in even when he was trying to escape. And now that you've seen the video, you know all of that are lies. They were just lying to you. And no matter what I present in this video, there's going to be a contingent of people who are going to believe the lies over the absolute truth.
I'm going to stop it there. You can watch the rest of it over at his channel. Again, that's Nate the Lawyer. But there are many other lawyers as well that have been chiming in on this, and they're all coming to the same conclusion. I mean, once the video came out, it's just a matter of time, and it's it's all out there. Let me look at some of your comments. And someone said that I seen the videos and none of them were HD. Yeah, they're all blurry like that. Because, you know, you got to understand too. I mean, this is in a event that's not typically going to be camered up where you're zooming in on everybody's face. You know what I mean? It's not an event for that. You know, it's a game. And so the cameras are going to be tuned to focusing what's on the field. And there was no activity at the time going on the field. So anybody floating any kind of conspiracy theory, you know, suggesting that they intentionally made it blurry and all of that, you got to understand these were security cameras, and they're not really designed to get every face on the field, you know, in the bleachers and all that. It's just it's doing exactly what they normally do. You know what I'm saying? But I will say this, and I'll throw this out here, you know, don't be surprised if cases like this are used to add more cameras and flock cameras into spaces like this. You know, they're going to say, see, all we got to do is add more cameras. Well, there goes more of your privacy there. But don't be surprised if they will refer to this. CTO Drum says, the one thing that you will never see is those that were making all of these accusations about what was in the video make an apology or say that they were wrong. Exactly. They won't. They'll just continue to build on it. That's it. But they will demand other people to make apologies. But yeah, so talking about he jumped back. He was trying to run out, and then he jumped. He was trying to run up, but they snatched him and they drug him back in and all of that. Y'all. But they and right, like you said, he said you're not going to see anybody making any apology. They won't. They're not going to do it. And you know, it's just, you know, the thing about this, like I said again, this is going to tie into what we're getting ready to get into as far as the fatherhood thing is concerned. Is that what was really bothersome to me is that right now, you know, if you've been kind of sort of following it, now they got an all-star team right now of black lawyers. They want to make sure you know these are black lawyers because now they're going to try to do an appeal. And so because they're going to try, and again, an appeal isn't a full retrial. What they're going to look at, they're going to come from an angle of civil rights. And what they're really going to challenge is, you should have really had black people on that, on that jury. You really should have had black people on that jury. You really need that. And I think it was racist that you guys did. And we're going to try to prove it that you guys intentionally, you know, made sure that the jury was white. That's the angle that they're coming. And pretty much, when you know, just in appeals, especially with cases like this, folks, I mean, you can look at it. You can look at many other cases, y'all. I mean, the chances of that winning an appeal and going, it's very slim. Very, very slim. And the other thing is, like someone mentioned, the other possibility is they can go through this and win the appeal and then eventually go do a whole retrial again. They could do that if they want. But it could come out where he can get even more years added to his sentence. I mean, so it's like bad gamble after bad gamble. And, you know, this could have all been avoided if they would have just gotten better counsel, and they chose not to. So there you go. Unfortunately. So Right now, we got the other story going on right now in Mississippi, again, with the unfortunate case of the little child, 1-year-old child who lost his life because of it started off as just petty theft. It was 2 women. One was the mother. They decided to, from what it sounds like, go on a free shopping spree at Walmart. They were caught. One of them was, and the security there first tried to, sequester the woman, one of the women, and to question her and say, hey, what's going on, that kind of thing. She wasn't having it. She wasn't trying to hear it, and started making a beeline to the car. Well, that's where they were intercepted by the police. The mother that she came with, that they were friends, well, she sees all this happening. She says out of her mouth, literally in the video that they made in the car, which, like I said, I don't know who the heck her lawyer, if that was her lawyer, but that was the dumbest move they could have did legally, because she basically told you everything would happen. She admits in the video that she says that, yeah, my friend was in fact shoplifting. She also says, but that had nothing to do with me. I know that the cops were trying to talk to her, but that had nothing to do with me. So she knew that the cops were trying to stop her, slow her down, and say, hey, listen, you still walking towards that car. We got some questions, right? That's basically what was happening. But they made a beeline. They, including the mother, makes a beeline to the car. So you're a mother, you got your baby with you. You see that the police now, we're not talking store security now. The police are now saying, hey, listen, you ain't going nowhere. We got some questions, but she's still going anyway. And here you got the mother of this baby. She's electing to interject herself. She just said a moment ago, that ain't had nothing to do with me, but you elected to put yourself in that position along with your baby. Okay. And so then what happens? Then they're trying to do the Bonnie and Clyde thing and trying to get away. Well, they did a preliminary investigation. They're still doing a full investigation right now. But let me see if I can pull up the, let's see, because I have the video right here. I just bookmarked it. This is what they're saying so far. Again, this is just the preliminary investigation. Let me pull this up here. And I'm going to tell you right now, because people now, they're doing the same thing over and over again. They're doing the same thing over and over again. We demand that they release the videos. And what's going to happen again? Once they release the video, guess what? People are going to get shamed again. But don't worry, they ain't going to stay shamed for about maybe a few seconds. Then they're going to come up with a whole new theory. But anyway, here's the video here. This is part of a news story here. Preliminary investigation. This is what they have found so far.
The Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, who's handling the case, says Senatobia police were responding to a shoplifting call and saw 2 women and a child leave the store and get into a car. According to MBI, officers say they attempted to stop the car several times, but the driver allegedly refused and drove towards an officer, which resulted in the shots being fired. And
there you go. And not only that, what the report doesn't mention is the fact that that's the car that they showed. You saw it was dented up because in the process, she was driving very recklessly, hit another car. Remember, this is a parking lot at Walmart. You got other civilians just walking around there. They could have gotten hurt, run over and all of that. So now you're hitting other vehicles. You're driving towards a police officer. I have tried, and some of y'all have seen, to explain to people what the law says about that. If you are in a car and you opt to use that car to drive towards a police officer, they will more than likely shoot to kill. That is the law. Everyone who is familiar with the law should know that. You don't do that. You want to, and I already had some people saying, well, what if they were white? Always got to bring that up. We ain't talking about white people, but let's play with that. Let's play that game. You remember the white lady who opted to try to speed away, from the ICE agents and was basically almost hit a police officer in the process? You know how that ended? Oh yeah, she got shot by police, the ICE officers. and they were in the right to do so. And so everybody got angry at the officers. Oh, how dare you do it? She was just trying to do it. No, you cannot do that under no circumstances. And so here you have these two girls, young ladies, decide to make this decision to try to take something. This was not about diapers at this point. This had nothing to do with diapers at this point. They escalated the situation. And I even tried to help people out. And I said, this is not just an isolated case. There are many stories that you can find right here on YouTube where people of that demographic will do the same thing. The police are just simply trying to stop you. It was one video that I'm not going to play, but I think it was in one of the links I provided where it was almost the identical situation. It was two young black girls who were running away from the police. The police tried to question them because they stole a bunch of makeup, y'all. Makeup. This is makeup. They were stealing makeup from like some store, like, I don't know, one of the women's like Kohl's or something like that. They were stealing makeup. And do you know, I wish I could play that video, but I really want to get to the other thing here. But they literally took off in the car, sped off, and were running lights, going fast. And the police were in hot pursuit of them. Y'all, this is over makeup. And then finally they got to a certain part where they abandoned the car. They took off in two different directions. Y'all, this is freaking makeup. That's all it is. And the one girl, she was trying to run from the cop and then tried to jump over the fence. And of course, that's how the cop caught her. And you know what the cop said to her? You want to guess what the cop said to her? Now, the whole time, the cop was very nice. I mean, I was like, wow, they really go through a lot of training here. You know what the cop said to her? I provided the video. I don't know if y'all watched it or not. You know what the cop said to her? He said, ma'am, why are you doing all this? You jumping over fences, trying to jump over a fence and hurting yourself and all of that. It's petty crime. They're not going to do anything to you in this state. It's just theft. That's it. And you're going to get arrested, but it's really nothing. I mean, they're not going to do anything to you. Why did you escalate it to this? And then she went into this whole whatever explanation, whatever, and start crying and all of that. And of course, they found out that, yeah, they had some other court cases that they didn't show up on. So it was a lot of other stuff buried into that. My point in bringing it up is that this happens a lot where simple interactions with the police will oftentimes get escalated unnecessarily. This is one of them. Unfortunately, it involved the loss of a young life. And so what I've tried to do is, there were a lot of individuals, of course, some that came our way who, they had a different take on it. They said no matter what, under no circumstances should police officers shoot at a car that has a child in it. And here's the thing. Someone said you left out the fact that the mother said she showed the police her baby in the car. Oh, honey, no. Oh, honey, no. I'll bring that up right now. Oh, baby, we'll bring that up right now. Yeah. You know when she did that? Let's talk about that part. You know when she did that? You're in the car. They're in the car. All right? The bullets are already flying. You hear this part here? You want me to cover the whole thing? The bullets are already flying. In other words, at this point, they are trying to stop the car from moving. So while the bullets are flying, I hope you're hearing me. Don't go away now. While the bullets are flying, this caring mother decides to hold her baby up. A human shield. Now, let me ask you something. What mother would hold your child up as a human shield? Why? So that you can get away. You've already broken all of these laws in the process. Now you are facing the full wrath of the police department because now you have tried to run over one of their officers. You can't do that. You can't do that. And you're already paying the penalty because the bullets are now flying. What does she do? She holds up her baby as a way of protection so that they can make their escape. Did you get that part? How about that part? That's the part that nobody wants to talk about that. You don't want to talk about that. It's still by default. It's still, I don't care what you say. The police are racist. They wouldn't ever have done that with a white person. I just gave you an example of a white person. Now what? What's the next goalpost move we're going to make on this? Folks, listen, it comes down to very bad decisions. Very bad decision. Very bad decisions. This person is saying they already saw her with the baby before she got in the car. Okay, then why the hell did she bring up the baby, hold the baby up as a shield in the first place? Why would you do that? Better yet, I got a better question for you. Why get in the car? How about that? If you know that if you know that your friend is trying to make an escape from the police, then why the hell would you jeopardize yourself and the life of your baby in the car? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Friend or not, if I'm with somebody and they're trying to run from the cops, I'm not getting in the car with them. I say, bro, I see you when I see you. I might show up on visiting day, but I'm gonna make sure I got one of them little clown mustaches on or something, because I don't want to be associated with you at all, because that was dumb. You can't do that, ma'am. You can't do that. You can't hold up a baby during a shootout. And if you think for one moment that somehow that's making anything big better for them legally, it's not. It ain't about racism. It's about stupidity. Why would you do? Why would you escalate something? Just you take something like stealing diapers, and now you turn into a whole Bonnie and Clyde event. They're not going to do anything. Stealing like that, if anything, they'll arrest you, and that's it. You know, slap your wrist, give you a little charge or whatever. That's it. Ain't no cops going to chase you down like that over some diapers. That's not going to happen. In most cases, that's not going to happen. They don't do that. And you know, it's funny because for those of you who remember that show Atlanta, you remember there was an episode in there where they said the guy walked in there into the sneaker place and he just took some sneakers and walked out. And the main character in Danny Glover in there, he was like, bro, what you doing? And the guy, his friend who was with, he was like, bro, man, take what you want. They got a no chase policy. They ain't coming after you. And the salesperson, he was like, well, I wish you would really not do that, sir. I wish you can't do that. But he ain't chase after him. I'm not advocating and saying you can go in stores and take whatever you want. What I'm saying is most stores, or better yet, the police ain't going to chase you down over something like that. But the moment you escalate it to now you're driving recklessly, you're endangering the lives of other people in that area. And on top of that, you almost hit a cop with a car. That's not going to bode well with you. Okay, I don't care. You can look it up. It only takes you a few seconds. You can chat GPT it if you want. It's going to tell you the same exact thing I'm telling you right now. You cannot, under any circumstance, use your vehicle and drive it towards a cop. It is not going to end well with you, because in most states, they see that as that car is all of now. It's not just a car anymore. It's a lethal weapon, and they're going to use lethal force. They're going to match force with force. That's how it works. Yeah, someone said, correction, the police will chase you. Yeah, the police will chase you. Yeah, you're right. The police will chase you because now you're in the general space, but the stores won't. The stores ain't going to do that. But they don't have a reason to shoot you unless you give them reason to, such as if you have a weapon. Like if you got a weapon, yeah, they're going to shoot you. And you're going to use it? Yes, sir, they're going to shoot you if you got a weapon on you. But if you just running down, how many police chases have we seen in the news where they literally are chasing people down? Like in LA, for example, or in Atlanta. I don't understand this. Some of my Atlanta people, y'all know, why the heck would you? I was telling Nicole this the other day. I was like, you got the 285 that goes around Atlanta, and there's always some kind of police chase. And what do they choose to do? They don't take the 85 and get the hell out of town. They don't do that. No, they take 285 and they stay on 285. Why? Why would you do that? Why won't you just like low key just drive away? There's so many places in the Southeast you can duck and hide. No, I'm going to stay on 285 and I'm just going to go round and round and round. Or in LA, oh, you know what? I got a bright idea. Let me take the 10. How about we take the 10? We go just take the 10 and we going to get out in rush hour. Yeah, that's our grand plan. And they let these things just roll out because it's, even if they stole a car or something, they're not going to shoot you. They're going to chase you down, but in most cases, they ain't going to shoot you. Now, if you coming out of that car and you got you got weapons on you, good night. Sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite. But anyway, it's crazy. But it's rooted. But all it is saying is that our assessment of the truth, being truthful, it is something that's been lost in this culture that we're in today. And so transitioning here a little bit, now we could talk about fatherhood here. All right. We're going to take a very interesting approach to this. How is this all related? Well, I'll tell you why in a moment. We're going to get into it. So as you know, we just had Father's Day. You could tell it was Father's Day because the restaurant certainly didn't appear to be packed. It certainly wasn't a whole lot of flowers set aside in the store for fathers. There weren't too many gifts, special gifts. I mean, you know, some of the stores, they had like Father's Day's cards or some, you know, other things like that. But, you know, the mothers usually get all the goodies and all of that. And, you know, it's just what it is. You know what I mean? But I'm never get mad at that kind of stuff. Because like I told you, even in my own life, I'm not like, oh, Father's Day is coming. I can't wait. I don't really think of that. Father's Day, I was working. Yeah, I was working like literally 12 hours straight. So how about that? But that was the last thing I was thinking about. But I was grateful. And I was grateful to have a beautiful wife and beautiful children and all that I know that love me and all of that. So I was very grateful for that. But that's all we really look for is, you know, stability, safety, love, those kind of things. As fathers, that's what we look for, you know? So anyway, for me, just really quick, I've shared my story about my dad many, many times. I mean, my dad, yes, he had a father and he had a mother. She died, and he had a second mother, a stepmother. I want to say one stepmother or two. I can't remember, but I know he had at least one. She died and all of that. But my dad was part, you know, he grew up in South Carolina. So, you know, in the South. So, you know, especially during that time, Jim Crow South, you know, there was a lot, the families were quite large, you know, he had a large family. And so for some of his upbringing, you know, it had to come from his siblings and along with his dad or my grandfather. He was a pastor. In fact, I think he was a bishop. Never met him, all of that, because he died way before me. And, but yeah, it was a combination of siblings having to raise themselves with the father and the stepmother, you know, and then other people in the community. That's what it was like back in those days. Right. And, but, you know, there was a lot of figuring out that men, particularly of his time, and even today, had to figure out on their own and learn as they went, you know. So during the time, you know, of his going into manhood and all of that, of course, there were mistakes that were made and all of that stuff. But he, you know, did the best that he absolutely could, you know, as a a developing man. One of the things that my dad did, I mean, is how he demonstrated how much he loved my mother. And he demonstrated it in many, many ways. You know, and just, he was, like I told you, my dad reminded me a lot of James Evans of Good Times. He was he didn't show too much emotion to me. It wasn't necessarily a bad thing. I just knew he loved me. I knew that much. And a lot of men in that day, in that era, they were like that. It wasn't the lovey-dovey type. They'll hug you and kiss you and all that kind of stuff. But they were there. They worked hard. They were there, to support, to provide stability and all that kind of stuff. And they, sometimes they'll be a bit funny, but their comedy was like very serious comedy, right? It was like, yeah, what happened at work the other day, these white people and what they did. And we'd be sitting around cracking up. And, Jim, he came in, he said this. And, I told him something, we'd be cracking up and he'd be dead serious. But that was their way of being funny. You know what I'm saying? And so, and it was a way of them to release some of that tension, stuff that they dealt with on the real, And, well, anyway, my dad got into the church. Well, he was in the church. He grew up in the church, but, he got away from it. But he came back into the church. And, he did everything that Christians would do, did. The church that we attended was a predominantly white church. And during that time, they definitely were white in many ways. It was even though it was a lot of interracial. There were blacks that went there. There was Hispanics that went there. It was other people, but the leadership was pretty much white. It was Assemblies of God. And so Assemblies of God, for the most part, was known as a very white denomination. But as you know, they didn't start off like that. But anyway, but yeah, it was a white denomination for the most part. Headquartered in Springfield, Missouri, especially during that time, very, very, very white. Anyway, after a while, my dad started noticing things. Things were going well and all that, but he just started noticing some things. And when Miles Monroe, some of y'all remember Miles Monroe. How many of y'all remember Miles Monroe? Miles Monroe, he was a very, very good teacher. Very good teacher. And he came out with the whole purpose of man. And when he came out with that whole teaching, when I tell you, it turned things upside down for a lot of people in the church, particularly black folks during that time. Because the way he broke that down, the book of Genesis and all that, as we understood at that time, he broke it down in a way that really made us feel as black folks that we actually fit. And we weren't just wedged into this thing, but we actually were a part of this story, right? And a firm part of it. And so, yeah, Miles Monroe really helped out with that a great deal. And so my dad, he was one of those, when I tell you, when he heard that, oh my God. I mean, the change that I witnessed, it was really fascinating. I mean, I saw his back get straightened out. I mean, it just really gave him new life. And one of the things that came out of that, he actually started his own men's organization because he really started having this passion for men. He wanted to see men become better. And he wasn't one that just talk about it. This is before the days of internet and all of that, but he was one that actually wanted to do something about it. So he actually formulated a little group called Men Be Men. I wish I had, I know I have a flyer somewhere. Maybe one day I'll show it to you, but it was called Men Be Men. He had paid somebody to do a flyer for him, a logo and all that stuff. And so what he would do is he would have men breakfasts at local diners and stuff like that. And they would talk and listen to one another. And he would also sponsor trips. He would do like fishing trips, Men was one of the things, a lot of men, not all men, but many men, they like to go fishing. So he would, and my dad especially loved deep sea fishing. And so he would, pull the money together and all that. They would charter a boat. This is off of Barnegat in New Jersey. Some of y'all men who are familiar with the New Jersey area, they would go off in the Barnegat area and go deep sea fishing and all that. But it was a great time for brothers coming together. And, I think he even had a couple of white guys in there too, but he didn't care. He just wanted to see men become better. And I watched him over the years really invest in that. But he didn't just do that. He also would go into prisons. Him and my mom, they would go into prisons, and they would actually spend time talking and listening to the young men that are in prison, encouraging them, showing them love, doing all those kind of things. I grew up with that. Meanwhile, my suburban behind, I was like, oh, I'm going into prison with all these black guys. Ooh, scary, that kind of thing. My dad was like, man, come on. You don't get your soft behind. Come on in here. He didn't say it like that. But, he definitely wanted me to be exposed to all of that and see that. And at the time, it was kind of like, oh, this is weird and all of that. But later in life, guess what? Who began to start doing that? Me. I started doing that myself. And one of the things I did, I created my own group. One of the groups I created, it didn't even have a name. I don't think I gave it a name, but it was young teenagers. I was focused on the males in my area. And one of the things we would do, same thing, I would get together, I would feed them, because many of them were coming out of homes that, father wasn't there. I would sit in homes, and while we're sitting there talking, roaches literally crawling all over the place, and you got to sit up there and act like, it's, you ain't bothered by it, or you go and buy groceries for these families, and then you're put in on the table, and the first things to greet you at the table with the groceries are the roaches. I've been exposed to all of those things, and I know what all that's like, but at the same time, you saw how the time that you spent with these young men, the difference it made in their lives, and I saw that, I witnessed that firsthand. Some of them are no longer with us. I remember one day getting a call early Saturday morning, and they told me, his name was Chris, young man that one of the young men I would help mentor. And he was going to work. He was getting his life together. And unfortunately, coming back from work, I think it was in Bordentown. It was in the Bordentown area. He drove and smacked into the embankment, killed instantly. And that was so sad. And I remember that because I could still see him, And I was like, man, this is someone I knew, And then, there was other little stories too of different other young men and stuff that I did. But where did I get that from? I got that from my dad. I learned that from him. And so I'm very appreciative of that. And that's something that I've always been in tune with. And I've tried to do that again. I did that again, in recent years as well. Every Saturday, or I think it was periodically. I don't know if we had a set date for it, but I had something for men as well. We would be together on Zoom. We would talk, share stories, that kind of thing, encourage one another, that kind of thing. And one of the things I did a little bit different with that is I didn't want them to see me as the center guy. Like, in other words, I'm always leading every discussion and all of that. I wanted them to do that. And so I slowly started to back out, not back out like I don't have anything to do with it, but I wanted them to kind of take it over and to kind of lead a little bit. And some did, some didn't, it's just what it was. But, but that's really what I wanted. I wanted to see others raise up and do that, because as men, it's hard. It is very difficult for us to communicate. It is, because a lot of us, when it comes to communicating with each other, it's a very difficult thing, but it is what it is. And those are things we got to work through. Same thing on my mother's side, my grandfather, same thing. A lot of stories that my mother shared over the years with him, for him building their own house, and, how much of a provider he was, the different things he went through during Jim Crow South to provide for his family and all that kind of stuff. So I have some great examples of men on both sides of my family, and I'm so, so grateful for that. Now, I know that a lot of people out there, unfortunately, don't, and so we're going to talk about that, and how do you fix that, or is that even fixable? Because, see, a lot of times we think that there's some magic wand or some hocus pocus we can just say, and all of a sudden just the right person is going to bring all of these young men in back into some alignment. But is that realistic? Well, I don't think so, but let's just continue on a little bit here. One of the things I want to say is this, is that by nature, men are protectors. You can't protect what has no boundaries. Let me say that again. Men are protectors. You cannot protect what does not have any boundaries. If something doesn't have boundaries, you can't protect it. And that's what we're dealing with today when we're talking about what we call Black culture. This is something that I have spoken about in great detail. I've really encouraged listeners to really think about these things. What exactly are the code of ethics within what we call the Black community? Do we even have a code of ethics? And I said, this is something that has to be defined, because in the world of AI, now that we're here, AI is going to define those code of ethics for us. And so, again, I'll just read that one more time. You cannot protect what has no boundaries. And I said, all of these boundaries have been set by nature itself, not government, social media, etc. These boundaries are in essence truth. They are absolutes, right? That's what these boundaries are. Like, these are certain things we're not going to allow in our community. We're not going to allow the mistreatment of women. We're not going to allow, we're going to make sure that in this space that children are absolutely safe, that they will not be harmed. You know, we're going to make sure that our children get the education that they need. And we're going to do everything we can to fully make sure that we're involved in their lives. You know, before government, we're not going to prioritize government intervention. We're going to prioritize us as being the primary we're intervening. We're the ones, we're the providers, right? And these are some things that unfortunately we have leased out to external sources, you know? So anyway, so what I did is I took a look, because I was very curious. Many of us are very familiar with how in animal life you have, you know, particularly when we're talking about fatherhood, we typically look at the lion and the lioness and the cubs, right? That's usually the first thing that comes to mind, but I wanted to take a slightly different angle. I wanted to go even further than that. I wanted to look at plants. Have you even thought of that? Plants, fathers and mothers, plants. Well, they're there. They are there. And so, yeah, you have male and female plants. I know it's quite amazing. It is. I never, didn't think of that before, but I actually, yeah, it's absolutely true. And we've talked about this a while back. Remember, we were talking about, the reason why there's so much pollen in places like in Atlanta or in Mississippi or in Alabama during the pollen season is because that the idiots that planted these trees in these areas, they planted, I think it's the females. They plant, or is it too many male trees? I think it's the male trees. They got all of these male trees, I believe. And, during that time of the year, it's time for them to procreate. So what do? They release. Okay. And they release and they release and they keep releasing. But if there's not enough, there's not a balance of female trees there, well, that's where you get all that pollen. All right. And so that's what happens. Like I said, in many places that have a high pollen count, what that's telling you is that there's not a balance of male to female trees that are there. That's usually what happens. Anyway, so let's see, where did I want to go with this here? One of the things, and this is, I looked some of this stuff up here. There's a study that was done, and they showed that male plants often suffer more damage than females. They say one review noted that early surveys and later meta-analysis found that male bias herbivory in many of these species. They said that can function almost like a decoy effect. If insects prefer male plants, females may experience less damage, which matters because females carry the heavier reproductive burden of producing seeds and fruits. So there's actually been some science behind this, that in some of these plants, it appears that the males tend to take more of the damage as a way of protecting the females. So that's something. So this is a practice that's baked into nature. Like, you, regardless of the culture and all that, beyond cultural practice and all of that, this is everyday nature. This happens every day in nature. Nobody, TV doesn't have any influence on this. Social media doesn't have any influence on that. This is a baked in behavior, right? Here's another one that I didn't know. They say male plants can send chemical warning signals. So in other words, if there's a predator, if there is something external to this group of plants that is external to them, it's foreign, it's designed to bring damage and harm to the other plants, male plants, they literally, through the root system, will send a message, will send signals to the other plants and say, hey, you better get ready. Get ready. No, get ready, because there's some danger coming. So they are the canary in the coal mine for the other plants, letting them know that there is danger coming. Isn't that fascinating? These are male plants. They just do this because that's how they're designed. And another point, they said in some plant systems, male flowers can be more attractive to flower-feeding insects than female or seed-producing flowers. We already read that. So what we're seeing, even in the plant kingdom, that male plants oftentimes are functioning or operating as a level of protection for female plants and for the baby plants too. Well, I don't know if you call them baby plants. We're going to call them baby plants today. For the little youngling plants, seedlings. So that's even in nature, we're seeing that. Like I said, a lot of times people will look at animals for that. I wanted to take it even deeper and say, let's look at how does this work in the plant kingdom? Well, it's very evident in the plant kingdom as well. Well, I'll take it even further than that. Another thing I want to look at is there any kind of, when it comes to, let me see here. Hold on for just a second here, because I'm looking kind of dark here. I love my dark skin, but it's a setting on my camera. Let me see if I can change this a little bit here. Hold on for just a second, y'all. Hold on. Hopefully that's a little bit better. Oh, I turned that light on. There you go. That's a little bit better. There you go. Almost missed that. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Man, the plants. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Okay, so do plants tend, within the same species, do they fight each other? In some cases, they do. There's some cases it's rare, but what they're doing is they're competing for resources. But most of the time, they work together. There's another fascinating thing I found is that, and generally speaking, what typically happens is plants instinctively, via the root system, they're familiar with each other. And so what they will do is when they're growing their roots, they will try to grow in a way that accommodates the similar plants, the same plant. So if you have a group of daisies, for example, or pine trees or whatever, their root system is going to intentionally grow in a way where they're all benefiting from each other because they're the same kind. While if you have other plants that are trying to come in and trying to tap in and trying to intrude, they will actually push them out and try to, hey, this ain't your space, this is our space. So plants, a lot of times, they will oftentimes, they know each other by their own root system. So they have a standard. You understand what I'm saying? They're protecting one another, and they know each other. I just wanted to throw that in there as well. So I thought that was fascinating. So again, let me go back again. You can't protect what has no boundaries. So when we look at what we call the black community, what we call today the black community, I'm asking you again, what are the boundaries that we have within the black community? And are there certain parts of the walls, if you will, are they torn down? Well, the problem is a lot of times when we try to talk about these things, and I've mentioned that many times before, there are people that get angry, they get pissed off, they get offended, and they will try to deflect to other things and all of that. But part of being a man, part of being a father is having the willingness to talk truth. You know, let me give you this. This is someone posted this on gentleman by the name of Sheldon Daniels. I don't know him. I've seen his name around, but I'm trying to get this thing to focus. Maybe it won't, whatever. But let me pull this up here on the screen here. Sheldon Daniels. This is what he said. All right. So he said, YN, you know what that is? Young nigga culture is not black culture. Hood culture is not black culture. Ghetto culture is not black culture. Degeneracy is not black culture. Violence is not black culture. Crime is not black culture. And I understand what he was trying to say here, but I did respond to him with this. I basically said this. I said, sorry, but this is like me saying that a person who has cancer isn't a cancer patient, or isn't, it's like me saying, they got cancer, but they aren't really a person that's suffering from cancer. It kind of reminds you of, like the church mother, for example, that, that goes to the doctor, and the doctor is telling them, ma'am, we looked at everything and I'm sorry to say you have cancer. And then she responds, oh no, the devil is a liar. I don't have cancer. No. I'm not listening to that. La. Nope. I'm not listening to that. I don't have cancer in the name of Jesus. In the name of Jesus, I don't have cancer. No, you're lying. No, I'm not going to accept that. I'm not accepting that at all. And the doctor, his response is, I hear what you're saying, ma'am, but for now you do have cancer. Now we're going to work together to try to rid that. But right now we got to first acknowledge the fact that it is a problem and it's something that needs to be solved. And the doctor has to do that to try to get you on that same plane so that whatever medications he or she administers or tells you need to take, he wants to make sure you're taking it and not taking faith medicine by just quoting scriptures all day. Meanwhile, that cancer is getting bigger and spreading all over your body, but you just pleading the blood of Jesus. I know some of y'all are like, whoa, but that ain't the blood of Jesus. It works. So whatever. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that tonight, but you know what I'm saying. So anyway, when I so I said, I said all the ills that you just mentioned are firmly attached and protected by black culture, right? And I said, now, do all of these ills represent all black people? No, but the culture we choose to latch onto does represent the people. Right now, black culture has multiple cancers. As soon as you try to remove one or at least address it, you're dismissed as a coon, sellout, etc. by the greater culture. We don't have the convenience or luxury to pretend that black culture is cancer-free. We have to be honest, and you right now with this take, you're not being honest at all. Now, we know about the CDC study. There's a CDC study that a lot of people like to quote when it comes to black fatherhood that talks about how black fathers are, in fact, when compared to other groups, other races, black fathers are the most involved in the lives of their children and all of that. And I tend to agree with that. I tend to believe that in a very wide sense that it does happen. But we put too much weight on that. And so going back to what I was saying is that, but when we look at the actual culture, right? There's people, and then there's culture. Okay, when we look at the culture, however, we are looking at a culture like what we just talked about earlier in this broadcast, for example, that is very committed to people like a Karmelo Anthony, who was a convicted murderer, and he's in prison right now. And you have grown men out here who, and women, but we're talking about men today, and fathers, who are out here defending somebody who's a convicted murderer. I mean, even with all the facts out there, it's still convicting. They still are defending this man. Meanwhile, you have other cases, many cases out here where young boys, young men are losing their lives at the hands of other black men on a daily basis. And there's really nothing for them. They don't see that kind of support coming from other men, coming from other people in the community. So we're sending mixed messages where we're glorifying that, not to mention, of course, you got some people that will say, I saw this video the other day. It was on TikTok. It's a black guy that lives out in Martha's Vineyard, and he was being very proud of the fact that he said, hey, listen, we don't have any of that ghetto drama here. These are professional people up here. And he was just bragging, talking about how nice it is. And he said, don't bring that stuff up here and all this other stuff, right? But here's the thing, is that you may not be someone who participates in that culture, so to speak, those ills that the person listed out in his tweet. But there are many people who do benefit from it, like the music and stuff like that. For example, you will listen to music that calls black women bitches and whores and all whatever. That's my hoe and all of that. Music that really degenerates our black women, music that degenerates our black men, music that glorifies just flying off the handle if someone there touches you, and you gonna go off and you gonna let them know and all of that. So you still indirectly are supporting and benefiting from these things. You know what I mean? And so you may not be out in the street with guns blazing or acting crazy or acting like the fool, but you still, in a way, you will protect it and you benefit from it. And there are, and so that's what I'm saying. The greater culture does defend a lot of this behavior. Now, am I saying all black people fall into that category? I'm not. But the culture that we're calling black culture does. Now, just like in that study that says that most black fathers do, in fact, are there for their kids and stuff like that. And we're going to hold on to that. Okay. But two things can be true. During this past weekend, I'm going to spare you, showing the videos, because you can look up the videos on your own. But during this past weekend, there was a lot of talk, about Juneteenth regarding this is our holiday. It's for black Americans and nobody else can celebrate it. I mean, as if you can gatekeep a holiday. I still don't understand that, but people think they can. But anyway, but you do know that during this holiday, the Juneteenth, there were many quote unquote teen takeovers, which actually meant black teen takeovers. There were many black teens that were shot at Juneteenth celebrations. There were some people that were even killed during these celebrations. And this is supposed to be the highest holiday of black Americans. Now, getting back to fatherhood, am I blaming and saying that fathers are the culprit to this? Absolutely not. But I'm bringing this up because I'm saying that this is some of the areas where when we talk about the no boundaries, when the boundaries aren't in place, the standards aren't in place, it results in this kind of behavior running amok. And what we're witnessing right now is just that, is a community, a culture where those boundaries aren't there, where we have our children, and these are our children, that are running out here are doing it. Now, you may say, some of you, when I just said that, you may say, well, that ain't my children. My children aren't doing that. And so there's this thing that many Black folks have in our minds, is that we will find ways to abate any kind of connection when something is bad. But when something is good, of course, we embrace that. And so when we hear that, then there's this whole litany of things that we go through. The latest now is, well, are they really Black, or are they Caribbean, or are they African? Because, you know, we don't really do that kind of thing. You know, check the hairline. It's always this other deflections and stuff that we go through. But if we're winning in a particular case, now all of a sudden we're all one. And this is what happens a lot. But here's the thing. When I'm telling you, as someone who grew up, you know, I'm approaching 56 years old. What I'm telling you is that as Black people, period, we didn't always think that way. In other words, there were mechanisms, there were things in place where we did watch each other's back. There was no, we got to check and double check and go back 5, 6, 7 generations and see where your family really come from, this kind of nonsense. We actually, regardless, and I do understand the nuances that we have today with immigration and all that kind of stuff. I do get that, and we've talked about that quite extensively. But how does this all tie into back to fatherhood? Well, it goes back to what I was talking about earlier, as far as that innate, that instinct that we have as fathers to set the tone, to set the pace, you know, for an entire community. And what I am saying is, fathers, this is an area that, these are areas that we definitely have some work to do when it comes to this kind of stuff. I would say this is the first time that I am aware of where you have a significant number of Black boys that not wanting to grow up to be men. You know, we're dealing with the whole LGBTQ thing, where you have a lot of numbers of Black men who are wanting to be not men. They want to be feminine. And we're being force fed into this belief system that we're supposed to just accept that as normal. And that is not normal at all. It's not normal at all for a man to want to be a woman, you know, but we see a lot of this happening, but this has been happening. You know, we've talked about this even in the churches. It's been there. And to have a fuller conversation about this, which we have in our series that we did, we talked about the Black church is the factory of broken children. That was the name of the series, I believe I called it. And we talked about the widespread molestation that takes place amongst boys by men on little boys, and also molestation that takes place by the women on the little girls and men too. But we do play a part in that. And when you talk to many of these gay men that are out here today, many of them do have stories where, yeah, they were touched, they were molested by men in their families. Not all the cases, but it has happened. Now, am I asking you as men that, or fathers, that we are to collectively come together and to fix all of this? Well, the truth of the matter is, it can't be fixed. A lot of this, it's no big hocus pocus wand that we can wave and all of this is going to be fixed. It's not. The truth of the matter is that it's for, unfortunately, in many of these lives, the horse has already left the barn. So we can do all these grandiose talks and speeches and all this other stuff. And, you know, the truth be told, a lot of these people, they're grown and they're not going to listen to you that way. It's just not. They've already made their choice. They already made their decision, and the record has to play out, unfortunately, for a lot of people. You know, we're talking about the ones that are the criminal element and all these other people, right, that we just talked about. Some of these people, it's just going to have to play out. But what can we do? What are some of the things that we can do as fathers, as men? What are some of the things we can do? Well, as I've pointed out many times on this platform, unfortunately, you know, you will find, you know, when it comes to social media usage, we already talked about that. Black folks tend to lead the way in that in this country. the amount of usage that we have when it comes to social media. So one of the ways we can do is by using platforms like social media as a way to help put the word out of, hey, this is what we should be doing. This is not what we should be doing. This is right. This is what should be considered right. This is what we probably shouldn't be doing. We shouldn't be engaging in this. And letting your voice be heard, but not just your voice, but your actions as well. Because it's one thing to talk about these things, but you also need to be doing it in your own life. If you have a family, for example, investing in your family, investing in the children that are around you. And I'm talking to fathers and just black men in general, investing in them, doing what you can. And then also coupling that with time you spend on social media, talking about these things. When, as someone who does follow social media a lot, I see a lot more videos out there of men talking about, get your passport. We got to get the hell up out of here. I see a lot more videos about that. Those videos get tens of thousands, no, hundreds of thousands of views. But when you take a look at videos where the topic is Black fatherhood, it's in the hundreds. Barely nobody watches those videos. But get your passports. We need to get out of here. It's the women, talking about what the women ain't doing. A lot of times I talk about, the 92% women, right? The 92%, the Kamala Harris women types and all of that, right? We talk about that. But in part, we had a part as men, we played in that, in creating that, in part. And so one of the things, again, as fathers, as men, we have to be willing to have these very difficult conversations without deflection, without pointing to somebody else, without pointing to the system. We do know that these things do have a part in it. But like I said, in my experience, when you start holding up that mirror and start pointing out the things we need to fix as men, as fathers, that's where you get a lot of pushback. I talked about earlier about my father and the stuff that he was doing. Again, he was doing this within the confines of a white church, but he was working almost exclusively with black men because that's what his heart was. I tell you, the biggest pushback he got wasn't necessarily from the white church. It was from black men. Because once you start getting it to certain levels, when you start confronting some of those real things, a lot of people didn't want to deal with those things. There's a deflection attitude that we see just within the culture itself. Is always, or what about the white man? Or what about them? What about this? What about that? Or whatever. But as a man, you can't do that. You got to take it. I'm not saying take it all, but you do got to take it. You got to be willing to face up to these things and say, you know what? There's some things I can improve on. There's some things I can better. I can improve on, I can make better, I can help make better, and all of that. Look at what you're doing. What are you contributing? Are you contributing just more noise on social media, just complaining about what ain't and the troubles that we've seen and going through? Or are you someone that is, every time you turn that camera on, every time you turn that microphone on, you're always thinking about one thing: legacy. What's the legacy that I'm going to leave, in the next 10, 20, 50, maybe even 100 years with all these data centers? They're recording all of this stuff that I'm putting out here. What will they think? What will they be able to pull from the content that I'm putting out right now? Will they be able to pull how good I am at playing video games, or how I can, talk about how bad black women are? And how we need to get away from them, and we need to search for better options. I was looking at a video the other day. There was and I've seen this, and there's many videos out here like this. It was black women who are, the trend now is, hey, listen, I'm too selfish to have children. I don't want to have children. I don't want to be bothered with no children, nothing like that. I'm done. I don't even want to have nothing to do with children at all. I don't even want to get married. I don't want none of that or whatever. And again, it represents a segment of black women. It doesn't represent the whole, right? But I'm hearing this happen a whole lot, where more and more of our women don't want to become mothers. Now, of course, they want to become mothers in the right way, but we need to have we need to hear from more of the good examples that are out there, right? But we need to start putting more of that out there. We got to start putting more of that out there. As husbands, as fathers, we got to start showcasing that. We got all of this technology out here. We need to really be focused on putting that out and trying to reintroduce that and giving our next generation a reason why, of something to protect. Because right now, like I said, we got grown folks out here throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars to defend a criminal. A criminal. One of the things I did with the men's group I had, it was a little project I put together. I said, let's put together, I asked people on the channel, I said, listen, if you have a husband or a male in your family that's in prison, please send them their information. And as men in our group, we're going to write letters and we're going to send letters to them just as words of encouragement. And that's what we did. We got little cards, went to Walmart, whatever, got those little cards there, the blank ones, and say, hey, listen, bro, I don't know you, but I just want you to know, hey, listen, you got some brothers out here that love you. We want the best for you, and we want to encourage you to make better decisions and all. Just keep it short, sweet, but very encouraging. It's little things like that that can make the difference. So as fathers, again, as men, black men in particular, can we fix all of what's out here? No, we can't. I'll just answer that for you. You can put together whatever organization you want, but you're not going to be able to fix all of these people. Some of the things, it's just going to have to play all the way out. You're going to have to, literally, there's hundreds, unfortunately, and I will say, and I am saying this, you're going to start seeing hundreds and thousands or more of our young black men, young black women going to prison because of the environment that they grew up in. But does that mean we just throw our hands up in the air and say, they ain't our kids, shoot, I'm doing, no. Mm-mm. You can start where you are right now. Be the best father you can be in your house. Be the best husband you can be in your house. And then whatever resources you have, be it social media, whatever, put that out there. Show other people, hey, listen, there is a better way. And the last thing, and certainly not least, I'll say this. As a husband, as a father, I'll say this. It can be a very, very, very lonely place. It is. It can be a very, very lonely place. And sometimes I think it feels kind of like a curse in some ways. But I don't think it's really a curse the more I think about it. I really think it just comes with the territory. You have to be willing to stand on your own. I'm not saying that you don't need friends and we are above that. No, nobody's saying that at all. But as a husband, as a father, you have to be willing for someone who's going to be a standard bearer in your house, in your community, in your culture. You have to be willing to stand on your own, primarily, even if it means against the people that you love and care about very deeply. And most of the arrows that you're going to get are going to be from people who look like you. If you're someone who stands for truth and wants to see the best in people, you're going to get attacked primarily by the people that you really love. That's just what comes with it. But what I want to encourage you to do for the good fathers out there, the good husbands out there, continue to do what you can. But we also got to know that, unfortunately, on the real, we're not going to be able to save everybody. You were designed to be a protector. You were designed to be a provider, right? But you also got to use wisdom too, because you can't provide and protect everybody. But those people that, that however Providence has surrounded you with, that, that's your people right there. That's your community. Not everybody that looks like you. Let me say that again. Just because people look like you doesn't mean that they're for you. All right? You have certain ones that are your family. That's your pride, so to speak, right? That's your community. That is your community. All right? And as long as you focus on that and make that the best community it can be, other people will eventually catch on, and hopefully we'll see some good things come out of it. But yeah, fatherhood is quite a very interesting position to have. But all we got to do is look at nature and see what are the basic things that we supposed to be doing as fathers, as husbands and stuff like that. Well, I just gave you some examples. So hopefully you got something out of that. And if you ever lose your way and trying to figure out, well, it don't have to be this long talk or discussion. We know what we as fathers and husbands, what we're supposed to be doing. You know, primarily what we're supposed to be doing. But this thing that we call black culture, there's a lot of stuff that's going on there. And like I'm saying is, quite honestly, I don't think it's something that can be fixed. But it has to start in the home. It has to start in the home. And it starts with your voice. Father, dad, daddy, bruh. You know what I mean? It starts with us. And that's what I want to leave with you. So hopefully you got something out of this broadcast today. I know we covered a lot, but I wanted to touch on those things there when it comes to fatherhood, because it's one of those topics that's very important to me. And I want to see, particularly our black men, I want to see us do better. I celebrate the ones that are doing wonderful, and there are many of them that are, but there are also many who are not. And we have to stop deflecting and ignoring that and begin to start taking that head on and dealing with that. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, that's it. That's all I have for you. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. If you have anything to add to the conversation, as always, you can add it in the comments below. Just keep it respectful. And also remember, this broadcast was brought to you by Samba Tree. Make sure you check out our website. The website, again, is sambatree.com. All right? You guys take care. Enjoy the rest of your day, evening, whenever you're watching this. You take care, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you again.